Selling infrastructure versus services, what is the difference? Well, this morning I was asked, Stefan, I've been watching your content. I really like what you do. However, I'm a bit confused. What is an infrastructure? How do I sell an infrastructure? What do I need to do? Basically, what is an infrastructure and how does it differentiate from the typical service-based business model that most of you run, whether that be video editing, short-form content, SMMA, any sort of service-based business? What is the difference? Well, the first thing we need to understand is, well, what is an infrastructure? And then the actual definition from the dictionary of an infrastructure is the basic or physical and organizational structures and facilities. And in economics, it means the basic physical systems of a business. Okay, so now we know what infrastructure is. What is the definition of a service? Well, the definition of a service, if we look it up here, is the action of helping or doing work for someone. Okay. Or assistance or advice given to the customers during and after the sale of the goods. So we can see that the definition of service versus infrastructure is different. They would have different deliverables, different offers, different mechanisms, different selling points, etc. They are different. But how are they different? Well, let me put it this way. When you offer typical, I don't care if you do short form content, video editing, SMA, whatever it is, any sort of service, you are offering your services to do a thing for that person. Okay, for example, you run SMMA, you do Facebook ads. Your services, I will help you run Facebook ads, create your offer, make your funnel. Okay, I will help you do those things, and then etc. I'll do the leads for you. Okay, you're helping them, you're offering them a service. Hey, I'll build you this, I'll do this, I'll do that. And then when you're done, you stop doing that. When you're done, you stop running ads. When you're done, you stop, etc. When the service is done, you stop giving it to them. So it's like you get paid as long as you run the service is technically how that works. Now, I'm going to talk about the pros and the cons later, but let's go to the infrastructure. What does that look like? Well, instead of saying, hey, I'll help you run your ads, etc., so here's what I'll do. I'm going to set you up the best funnel, the best ad account, the best creatives, and I'm also going to build you out an email sequence, and I'm also going to hire you a closer, place a VA in your business and a setter, give you closing scripts, and consult you for the next 2 months on how to use this infrastructure, which is whatever, let's say you call it the $100 million funnel, which is getting clients, nurturing clients, closing clients. And then maybe your infrastructure is the $100 million funnel. All your deliverables are those things in there that I mentioned, the media buying, the funnels, the ads, the closers, the email marketing, the indoctrination, the nurturing, the content, the VSLs, etc. Follow-ups, all those things are in there. And then what you do is you build it out for them, you give it to them, and they own it. They own that asset for life. So now they can do their own media buying, they can do their own follow-ups, they can do their own, etc., because you built it out for them. That's the difference. Here's the thing, is you cannot build an infrastructure if you don't have the knowledge from the services that you would provide. Right? So here's the mistake I see people doing, is they want to build an infrastructure because it's beautiful and it's amazing and it gives you more leverage and there's a lot more leeway and it's more scalable, okay? It's awesome. I highly recommend, if you can, do it. Here's the issue, is you cannot build infrastructures if you don't even understand the basic core fundamentals of what you're delivering. How could you build an infrastructure for running the best ads if you never ran ads? So I guess the moral of the story is, like, when you're a beginner, I recommend you start out in the done-for-you service-based business. Get your reps in, get your clients in, get your results in, get those easier case studies where you're charging less, right? And you have to do more work. That's fine, because a lot of people, okay, overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in a decade. And so the point is, don't try and think, shit, I need to make 100K in the next month this year. Think, how can I make 100 million in the next 10 years? And so what happens is people think they can do way more in a year, but they don't think about how much they can do in 10 years. And I'll tell you this, when you think on 10 years, it's a lot different than when you think in 1 year, because shit can happen. And so the point is, what you want to do is, if you're starting out, start out service-based. If you're more advanced, you understand, you have that understanding, those skill sets, build infrastructures. Now, let's actually talk about, okay, well, what the fuck, how do I build an infrastructure? What is this? What is that? Etc. Because that's one of the other concepts I want to explain. Well, in order to build an infrastructure, you have to understand what you're building. And so therefore, like I said, once again, you need to understand the skills from the done for you, from the service-based thing in order to offer this in the first place. Which is why it's very hard for a beginner to offer an infrastructure. Because I'll tell you what, when building a house, an infrastructure, okay, the person who designs and actually organizes and puts the house together and hires people to build the house has to know a lot more about building the house than the guy who gets hired to put on the windows. Do you see where I'm going with this? The guy that gets hired to put on the windows, he still helps build the house, but he just gets hired to do the windows. That guy, even if he wanted to make more, he doesn't know how to build a house yet. So he has to start putting in windows, and then he'll do the framing, and then he'll do the foundation, then he'll do the digging, and etc., etc., etc. Okay, once he gets his reps in and he learns how to build a house, he can then go and build his houses. But you have to get the understanding in order to build the house. The guy who built the house didn't one day wake up and say, oh, I'm going to start building houses. He learned the knowledge so that he could do it. The same way when selling an infrastructure. You have to learn the knowledge. And so selling infrastructures are amazing, but you cannot do them if you don't have the knowledge. Now, let's say you have the knowledge. How do you build an infrastructure? Well, simply put, what you do is you build an infrastructure, an asset that you can then build and replicate and adjust and optimize that solves a plethora of problems and then give it to your client. For example, building a whole house solves a lot more problems than some guy that says, hey, I can do your windows. But building the whole house requires a lot more work and a lot more skill and a lot more understanding. And so think of it as when you run when you're doing your typical SMMA, you're just doing the windows, you're just doing the framing, you're doing one of the things. But when you build infrastructures, you have to build the whole house. You can't just say, oh, I run ads, let me make an ad campaign for you and that's my infrastructure. No, 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 no. You can't do that. You have to build a house. You have to build a home. And so in order to, you have to offer a plethora of different things so that you have more things to offer that builds the infrastructure that provides the value, that solves the problems. And you only know that by learning the problems, etc., etc., etc. Okay, let's go back. Let's circle back. Okay, because this might be a bit confusing. Fundamentally, what are the pros and cons of infrastructure? Okay, and what are the pros and cons of service-based businesses, of offering just a service? Okay. Pros of service is you can close clients easier, you can learn things quicker, you can hone in on that one skill faster, you can get more case studies, and you can essentially learn more quicker, and then we'll get into the cons. Okay, so those are all the pros. There's more pros, but I'm simplifying this. The cons. Well, the cons are you're not as leveraged, okay? You're not as efficient, you're not as effective, the scalability isn't as high. And you have to put in more work of just your time. There's less managing, putting pieces here or there, like the guy who builds the house. When I say build the house, the guy who decides, hey, we're going to build this house and then hires people to do it, right? He just hires people, he doesn't do anything. That's exactly how infrastructures work. The guy, he knows everything, but he hires everybody in their certain departments to be the best at what they do so he can build the best house. That's exactly how infrastructures work. Okay, so anyways, cons, not as leveraged, you're not as skilled, you don't have as much efficiency, etc. Okay, pros and cons. Easier to start, harder to scale. That's like the main pro and con there. Pro and cons of infrastructure. Well, the pros, you're a lot more leveraged. Okay, there is a huge scalability aspect to it, right? The scalability of an infrastructure is huge because all you have to do is kind of manage and hire people out, and then you fuck off and go build your next infrastructure. So you can keep building and building and building. And every extra client, all you have to do is just repeat and build the infrastructure. You don't have to take your time and do it. No. You just hire the people to do it and build it, and you're gone again. Okay. So the pros, you have a lot more leverage, so therefore you can scale quicker. You can charge more, you can solve more problems and provide more value. There's obviously more pros, but that's like the main. And then the cons of infrastructure is, well, it takes a lot of knowledge, it takes a lot of skills, insights, it takes a lot of talent, it takes a lot of management, it takes a lot of leadership. It takes a lot on the front end to understand what to do, how to do. It's a lot harder to sell, right? It's a huge, bigger thing you have to sell. You have to have more frame, you have to have more indoctrination, you have to have more people, as in have to have more people in the sense of good talent in your respective areas, right? Like obviously if you're to look at a 100K infrastructure-based business versus a 100K service-based business, the 100K service-based business has way more people because of the nature of how their business runs. Service, one person for every client, etc. Infrastructure, it's not that way. One person can manage a bunch of projects. I think you get the point. Anyways, the point is, at the end of the day, both of them are respectively, both of them, this is live, this is raw, this is uncut. Both of them are respectively, both of them are respectively great in their own, in their own context, okay? When you're a beginner, service-based, way better. When you're more advanced, when you want to scale, infrastructure is better. So they're both respectively really good. But depending on where you are and what your skill sets are, and I guess the knowledge you have and the assets that you have and the things that you have with you, will decide on which one you should do. They're both great, just good and better in different points in time depending on what you're doing. My last analogy, because they call me the analogy man, is if you're a beginner who's trying to start a business, an infrastructure-based business where you build infrastructures, it's the equivalent of you trying to squat 1,000 pounds because you saw Jesus do it. Okay, he's a famous powerlifter. It doesn't work that way. You gotta climb the ranks. You gotta build up. You gotta start with 135, right? You gotta go up and up and up and up and up, and there you go. And so you can't just jump to 1,000 pounds because you saw somebody else do it. You have to earn your stripes and work your way up there. Okay, that being said, I hope that this video gives you a bit of insights onto infrastructures versus service-based businesses and kind of knowing which one to start, because obviously in 2024 there's a huge rise in the growth creator, growth partner, infrastructure-based offer models, and like build and release, right, which is a form of an infrastructure. But there's a lot of confusion as to who should do them, how do you start them, how do you even build an infrastructure, and that's why I recommend if you're a beginner, don't start out with infrastructures. It's way too complex, and you're way better off learning the skills and earning your stripes in the service-based business world. Hope you enjoyed.